So for this rebuttals episode of In Plain Sight, I thought it was important to use it as a good example of why nuance matters in outbreak communication, because there are just parts of a discussion that are parts of a discussion that are reasonable and cautious, but there's also many points where he's speculating and it drifts beyond what the evidence actually supports. And he's sharing this information, as are others. And it's creating anxiety and fear where it doesn't need to exist, because that is not the truth. Now, to be fair, first, he repeatedly says it's unlikely to become a major outbreak, that wider community spread isn't currently expected, and that transmissibility appears low. And this is, generally speaking, it aligns with current public health assessments and personal knowledge of how hantavirus works. It has between a 40 and 50% mortality rate. So it can't become a pandemic because the mortality rate's too high. The mortality rate was between 1 and 3% on average for COVID. Therefore, it very easily became a pandemic. But something that has a higher mortality rate is unlikely to ever become a pandemic because it kills off the host organism before it can spread enough to cause a pandemic. That's why Ebola could never become a pandemic, because 14 days max, and you're in the end stage of the disease, the infection. So it is unlikely to become a pandemic because the virus doesn't work that way. Can you say with 100% certainty it won't? No. What in life is 100% certain apart from death and taxes? And even the death one's a bit negligible if you read some science articles. But it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. But when you listen to it further, several of his conclusions go way beyond the available evidence. And I'm saying this as someone who has 20 plus years in infection control and attends regular UK SHA meetings for regular updates. And his data is woefully out of date. Now, one reoccurring theme is that one individual may have led to multiple infections upon the ship. And he somehow suggests that this suggests Omicron levels spread of an R value of 9. That's not true and completely misleading. You cannot meaningfully compare a tiny cluster on a confined ship with the population level spread dynamics of COVID variants circulating globally. You just can't do it. The math doesn't add. The math doesn't math. Ships are highly unusual environments epidemiologically. Think about it. Prolonged indoor exposure, repeated close contact, shared ventilation, communal dining, social mixing, limited isolation opportunities, delayed recognition of illness, and so on and so on.